Welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Thank you so much for joining us for another segment. We're going to be speaking with returning guest, Wendi Dumbroff. She's joining us here we'll talk about shame. It's an issue that many of us suffer with, but rarely do we talk about it. We just don't discuss it. It's a huge issue because it creates this feeling that there's something wrong with us. Welcome back, Wendi. How are you?
I'm well, Neil. Thank you so much for having me back.
Why don't you give us a bit of your professional background, talk about what it is that you do and where it is that you do it.
Oh, sure. So I'm a licensed professional counselor. I have postgraduate training in family and couple therapy and also in sex therapy, and I have a private practice in Madison, New Jersey, although since March of 2020, it's been in New Jersey from my home, and haven't really been in my office very much.
Is this something that you went into when you first started practicing? Was this your love from the beginning, when you were in school studying?
Well, when I was in school studying, you sort of get that general everything. And when I began doing my internships, I had a mentor there and a supervisor who had trained at the Ackerman Institute in family and couple therapy. And I thought to myself, she's so good at this that if I could be a fraction as good as she is, then that's where I want to study. And so I really did enjoy the couple and family work. And so I went to the Ackerman Institute through they have a whole program for family and couple therapy. It's not really a certification, but it is a few years long program, very intensive. And then subsequent to that, I found that I really loved working with couples. And so that's the reason I went ahead and did sex therapy training, because with couples, sex is often an issue.
I did say that you were going to talk about shame today, a problem that many of us suffer with, but we rarely want to discuss it. Now, you are a specialist in the area of couples therapy, sex therapy, counseling, things of that nature. Is shame associated with people who are having problems in that area or who maybe have suffered some abuse in that area?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Shame is something that, I think we all know what the feeling of shame feels like. And just to differentiate shame and guilt, because sometimes they get a little sort of mixed up.
Okay.
When we feel guilty, we feel badly about something that we did. And usually we can say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. It's about a thing that we've done. Shame is where we fundamentally feel bad about ourselves and who we are, right? Perhaps because of an experience we're having or just who we are as we move in the world. But shame is more about there's something wrong with me, not with a thing that I did.
Is it fair to say shame is based on something done to us as opposed to something we've done where guilt is involved? Or is that too simplistic?
It's probably a both and. It can be, and sometimes people do things that bring them shame because they feel guilt and shame can exist together. So they may feel badly about things that they've done, but they also may feel badly about themselves because of the things that they've done or the way they've lived their life. For example, someone who is an alcoholic, right, may have a lot of shame about the way it has affected their family and also feel badly about what they have done. But they also may feel badly about themselves because of what they have done. One area where shame can show up where it is really because of what was done to a person is people who are survivors of sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse. Even as adults, very often what happens for kids is that they, for whatever reason, turn in and they feel badly about themselves. Oh, this person did that to me. There's something wrong with me. And especially if they feel that their body responds in some way, because you can't help how your body responds. And when certain areas get touched, it may feel good. So a child may have a pleasurable experience and feel shameful about that because they think that they want it, or they think that the adult that abused them, that they made them do it. Well, if I hadn't been X, Y, or Z, they wouldn't have done that. It was probably my fault, especially if that is a trusted parent, because our parents keep us alive. So when parents do things in a way that makes us kind of feel a way that we feel like, I don't like this, we look at the parent and it's kind of a bit of an existential crisis. It can't be my parent that there's something wrong with, because then where does that leave me? Then how do I survive? So the child actually takes that in and says, oh, there must be something wrong with me. And so as counterintuitive as it sounds, many times kids who are survivors, adults who are survivors of childhood sexual abuse, often hold on to shame, even though, of course, that was not their fault in any way.
Is it possible to treat the resulting anxiety from guilt and or shame?
So anxiety definitely can show up with shame. It may not be primary all the time. I would say that a more holistic approach is a better approach, but it's a great question, because someone may show up in your office with anxiety, but what's underneath that? Because in fact, that anxiety may be filled with, oh no, somebody's going to find out who I really am. And so I can't let that part of me be seen, because if they see me, then they'll know that I am no good, or that I have these terrible secrets and that I've done these terrible things, right? And so it's really about, anytime anxiety shows up, you really want to unpack it and understand it more completely.
Normally, I guess it's a symptom of something else.
Yeah. Well, yes. And anxiety is so common and so pervasive, but so are all our moves in life. Like, for example, why is one person triggered when they feel unheard, and another person may just be like, hey dude, you're not listening to me. Can you pay attention? Right? And another person may get steaming angry. And generally with the person that gets steaming angry, when you begin to unpack an experience for them, you find that, I never felt hurt as a kid. And so not even consciously, it's not even a conscious process, it's an unconscious experience of, I'm not being heard, and I really feel stressed about that. And the body actually remembers. The body remembers, even though our conscious mind may not be thinking, gee, you're not listening to me, and that makes me kind of upset, and I connect this to the fact that in the family I grew up in, I never felt heard, and yet we are reactive. But if you can open some space between what triggers a person and their reactivity, then you can begin to help them to have control over the emotion versus the emotion having control over them, if that makes sense.
It does. Wendi, if you would give us a website where we can learn more about you and your practice, it'd be appreciated.
Oh, sure. My website is Wendi Dumbroff Therapy. It's Wendi with an I. I know I'm one of the only people. There's some, but most people spell it with a Y. It's WendiDumbroffTherapy.com. That's my website.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you could take the time once again to speak with us. It's been a pleasure, and I'm hoping that we'll have some more conversations. Thank you much, Wendi, for returning.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Wendi Dumbroff. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, or listen in, download at SoundCloud, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com Health Professional Radio.